So thanks for tuning back in. I got cut off from part one there. So I'm thinking about mold exposure and if it's a factor or a non-factor in kind of feeling lethargic. When you've been sick for a while, you wonder about a lot of things, like, was it the fact that I have a brain tumor diagnosis? Is it the fact that I'm on these powerful antipsychotic medicines that they prescribe to me that I take for epilepsy and anticonvulsory? Is it perhaps the fact that I had a biopsy of my brain? Is it perhaps the fact that seasonal affective disorders at times? Is it the fact that maybe I just have some emotional issues? Is it the fact that dietary changes? I don't know. I've been optimally healthy by my own standards for the last, it's been at least since January, and here I am now late August, that I've been very meticulous about being healthy and doing mostly all the right things that I can do to stay this way. Eating good, being on a plant-based diet, which I know you can go too far with that also, but I feel clean, I feel good, but yet I'm waking up in the mornings still with this, and it's hot outside. I know the hot air brings damp, cool air down if you're living in a basement space, and that's a concern of mine. So I'm over the corner now of 72nd over by Woodstock. Let's finish up this video real quick and let you know that I've found some really cool information. I watched a documentary about black mold called Moldy. It was recommended by this man that I've mentioned before, Troy Casey, the certified health nut. He talks about his exposure to black mold and recommended watching this documentary. And I can see how this documentary could get someone really hypoed up, meaning like a state of like overreaction, hypochondria, if that's your predilection to that. But it made a lot of sense to me, and I started thinking about it. I started thinking, like, what could it be? I mean, but one thing that's good is I'm on the up and up. See, I'm like finally getting to a point where I've been approved for housing through Section 8, which is great for me because that's a good step in the right direction. I've got some work to do on that to get there, but looks like I'm going to be getting out of this basement apartment soon, and I've been in it for 5 years. When I first was diagnosed with a brain tumor, I moved back to the Portland area. I was living in Vancouver, Washington, just across the river from Portland, and lived there, and that was not a very conducive living situation for me because I was living with a buddy of mine who I love dearly, but he had 3 large, wild, mostly untrained Labrador retrievers, and that was a lot of stress because those dogs were pretty wild and the place was pretty cluttered and messy with dog hairs. So that was all right for the time. It served its purpose, but then I was like, I need to get back into Oregon, back to Portland, and I did, and found this place. By some stroke of luck, it was very cheap, and I mean really cheap compared to what the market's willing to bear right now. And I've been there for 5 years. I don't know if I've lived anywhere for 5 years except for growing up in a home where I was as a kid. So I've always had my eye on moving out, but now I'm really impassioned to do so, really inspired to do so, especially if this mold and mildew issue and air quality issue is going to play a factor in my life. That's definitely no bueno. So I know there's tests you can do. There's little tests you can buy from like the hardware store and put out, send it in. But really my intuition is just like, that's a big investment and you don't want to stay here anyways, so get the hell out. So at the beginning of the next month coming up here, September, I'm going to be going to see my father in Maine, where I grew up, and I'm going to spend some time with him, and that'll hopefully be good, because if there is some kind of exposure to mold or mildew or dust or something that's bad for me, then I can get the hell away from that for a while and clean up my lungs and try to maybe reset my mind in a new environment. Now, spending time with my dad and working on our relationship that we've had for my whole life, that's a whole different story. We can talk about that in another post. But I love my dad dearly, and I know he loves me dearly. We have our issues, but who doesn't when you're in a relationship with someone that you've been so close to your whole life, that's reared you and been an integral part of who you are. But just wanted to share a little bit about my situation. If you're interested, I'm pretty much bearing my life on YouTube these days, because fuck it. I hope that some of the stuff I offer here is good fodder for you if you're going through a similar situation, or you're thinking about your life from a survivorship perspective. Maybe you're just wanting to connect with somebody who shares a few commonalities with yourself. So anyways, I'll wind this on up. I want to thank you for being here, and I'm staying strong. I'm staying fit. I'm active every day. Even when I feel like crap, I allow myself permission to rest. That's important, allowing yourself permission to rest and heal, but also knowing that sort of integrative approach to knowing when to push yourself when you need to break on through to the other side, as Jim Morrison said. All right, peace.